Hi, everyone. My name's Wanda Kay, and I want to thank you for joining me again today as we continue our journey through the book, The Greatest Miracle in the World by Mandino. And today, we begin Chapter 6. I surprised him with a gift on his 79th birthday. The shock that I had remembered the exact date, number 13, from one of our very first conversations together, almost did the boy in. I detest shopping, but I'd spent 2 torturous Saturdays searching for something unique and relevant to buy Simon. I finally found it in Marshall Fields at Woodfield, an Italian cast glass geranium plant. It stood nearly 2 feet tall with coloring and leafing so natural that unless one had touched it, there was no way to know that it hadn't been grown and pampered in the fussiest of greenhouses. Simon owned a window box, the only one hanging outside any apartment window on the entire blighted block. He said he had built and hung it soon after he'd moved in, and each year he would haul it in and carefully paint it with fresh green paint. Also each spring, he would plant countless seedling geranium plants, his favorite flower, in that box. And they would always struggle their way skywards, then turn ugly shades of yellow and lavender and finally wither and die. Last year, he told me he tried to change his luck by waiting until early summer and buying plants already full-grown and in bloom. 2 weeks later, they were brown and dead. Still, he never gave up. He already had a new strain picked out in a seed catalog that he looked forward to trying next spring. The old man insisted he'd never lost a geranium in either his Damascus or Saskatchewan gardens. Once he went into a long description of how he would dig his favorite plants before frost came, hang them in his basements to dry, and then replant them in the spring. One of his earliest successes at helping living things to start new lives, he chuckled. Some of his geraniums had been more than 20 years old, but not in Chicago. Simon blamed it on the pollution. How can anything survive in this rain of death from above and from the gasoline monsters on the street? Look outside, Mr. Ogg. It is a full moon tonight. Can you see it? No. We are engulfed in our own refuse. We bathe in it. We breathe it. We eat it, even the water. And even the water that I pour on my plants contains chemicals that would kill a cockroach. Today, only the plants and birds die. Tomorrow, who knows? Still, I have faith that eventually I shall grow a geranium and that the human race will awake in time to prevent their world from becoming a giant junk pile. It's going to take an army of rag pickers to accomplish that, Simon. In order for this planet to survive, each human must eventually become his own rag picker. He must not depend on his neighbors for salvation. Believe me, Mr. Ogg, this will come to pass. They had gift-wrapped the glass plant for me at Fields with one of their most extravagant papers. And when he opened the door, I placed the large gold box in his hands and just said, "Happy birthday, old friend." He took the box, mouth open, speechless. Then large tears popped from the corner of each eye and ran down deep wrinkles on both cheeks. He placed the box carefully on the floor and hugged me. Finally, he placed one giant hand on each side of my face and kissed me on the forehead. Mr. Ogg, this is the first birthday present I have received in 35 years. How did you know the day? Oh, you let it slip one night. Open the box. I cannot. It is too magnificent to open. The paper, it is so lovely. It should not be torn. It's only paper. Go ahead, open it. Simon lowered his huge frame onto the rug and drew the large box toward him so that one long leg was on each side of it. First, he carefully untied the ribbon and gently removed it. Then he slid his fingers under the paper wherever he came in contact with sealing tape and slowly peeled away the wrapping to eventually uncover a large brown cardboard box. Then he took out his pocket knife, cut the glued strip across the top, and moved back the cover flaps. He looked inside and frowned. Then he began to remove the yards of tissue paper, which had been packed tightly around the plant. savoring each moment with the kind of childish excitement and anticipation that one usually sees only at Christmas. At last, he reached in and tenderly removed his gift of glass from the carton. A geranium! I cannot believe it. A paragonium of the highest class. A show flower, a blue ribbon aristocrat, if ever I've seen one. And it's not real? It's made of glass? Mr. Ogg, where did you find such an incredible work of art? And look at the crimson of its blooms. Once in Jerusalem, I saw a geranium with the same iridescent glow. I tried to purchase it from the owner, but did not succeed. Such a gift, such an expensive gift, Mr. Ogg. What can I say? Don't say anything, Simon. I'm happy it pleases you. It's only a small token of love, and thanks for all the hours of wisdom and hope you've shared with me. Happy birthday, and may you have 79 more. By now he was on his feet, carrying the plant from place to place, searching for the ideal spot to display it. He set it on the coffee table, stepped back, studied it for several minutes, shook his head, and removed it. Then he tried it on top of the television set. No. Then on the end table behind the pictures of his family. Better, but still no. Watching him fuss and move his gift from place to place, I suddenly had an inspiration. Simon, there is really only one perfect spot for that geranium. He paused reluctantly, as if I were spoiling his fun. Where, Mr. Ogg? Well, it's made of glass, so no pollution will hurt it. Why not plant it outside in your window box? Who else in this entire city will have a red geranium in their window box blooming its heart out in November and December and January and every other month of the year? That is a stroke of genius, Mr. Ogg. And it can stand out there to bid you good morning each day as you drive into the parking lot. I shall do it, but you must perform the honors. The honors? What do you mean? You must plant it for me. Wait, I'll get my trowel. And so the two of us planted our $95 glass geranium. We wrestled with the ice-stuck living room window until it grudgingly moved upward, and while cold blasts of premature winter winds nearly took my breath away, I leaned out and chipped a hole in the almost frozen black dirt in the window box. Simon handed me the plant, and I buried the pot, covering it with sand so that only the plant showed. Then we stepped back to admire our landscaping as the warm light from the living room reflected off of the plant's petals. It is beautiful. It is very special, Simon shouted. Now I have my geranium at last. You see, he who perseveres never fails. Who but you would find such a present? It's for my favorite rag picker, that's all. Then we drank a toast, sherry, of course, to his 79 years, and we sat. I could see that he was fighting to keep his emotions under control. His lips were quivering slightly, and his eyes were half shut. I wondered what memory he was submerged in, but I kept still. Finally, he shook his head as if to clear it and said, Nothing is more disgraceful than that an old man should have nothing to show to prove that he has lived so long except his years. I know who said that. Seneca, right? Mr. Ogg, you are too smart to be only 50 years old. But you have much to show for your years, Simon, just considering only these years you've lived as a rag picker with all those people you've helped. Yes, my angels from the dump. I loved each one of them. They are my ticket to heaven, my passport to Leisha and Eric. Simon, I like Henry Ford's remark about growing old better than Seneca's. Yes? Ford said that if you took all the experience and judgment of people over 50 out of the world, there wouldn't be enough brains and talent left to run it. But Mr. Ogg, Ford did not say that until after he had passed the age of 50. And then, of course, there was the saying of that 18th century German humorist Richter. Do you know it? I knew you'd top me. Go ahead. Richter said, like a morning dream, life becomes more and more bright the longer we live. and the reason of everything appears more clear. What has puzzled us before seems less mysterious, and the crooked paths look straighter as we approach the end. As if drawn by some giant magnetic force, I suddenly rose from my chair and went over to Simon and sat at his feet. I looked up into his beautiful face and said, "The God Memorandum. I think I'm ready for it. I would consider it an honor and a privilege for you to give it to me, and I promise you that I'll do everything in my power to deliver it to the world. I can think of no time in our history when we have needed it more." The old man sighed softly, a look of almost overwhelming relief on his face. "I was afraid you'd rejected my offer, or, as the months passed, had even forgotten it. Your acceptance is a greater gift than even my geranium. Still, I have had second thoughts about my offer since I made it to you." "You mean you've changed your mind, Simon?" No, not that. Only concern that people may not take its message seriously. Mr. Ogg, since it is so unsophisticated, brief, and basic, in these days it seems that the more complicated, high-sounding, and expensive one makes self-help instruction, the more people are attracted to it. While they tend to put down those such as Dale Carnegie, Dorothea Brande, Napoleon Hill, Norman Vincent Peale, and even your W. Clement Stone, who offer simple but workable solutions to life problems. Furthermore, it is one thing to advise and counsel an individual in the flesh prior to introducing him or her to the God Memorandum, because the power of your personality hopefully adds credence to your gift. It is quite another matter for words on paper with no preliminary personal mind conditioning to be forceful enough to motivate the reader into action. Simon, there will always be a small group of detractors, long on education and short on experience, ready to accuse you of offering pap and simplistic solutions to what they clarify as extremely complicated problems, usually requiring 5 years of therapy at $50 a weekly visit. Yet I would like $1 for every human who has been inspired and helped, and truly helped, by reading Carnegie, Peale, Brande, Hill, Stone, and many others without ever meeting the authors, including Mandino. I'd join that group any day if they'd have me. Simon, do you still want to multiply yourself? Do you still want to help thousands instead of only a handful? Of course. Well, there are 2 ingredients necessary for the God Memorandum to become a success. First, there must be a need for it, and then it must have a showcase that will assure it wide distribution to those in need. I remember that Lillian Roth in her book, I'll Cry Tomorrow, wrote that she had been unable to rescue herself from her own living death, alcoholism, until she finally learned to say the 3 most difficult words she ever uttered. Those words were, "I need help." You told me yourself that the best time to help people was when they'd lost all hope and had no one left to turn to for support. Simon, if you listen, you can almost hear a chorus of millions from every neighborhood and status and profession in the world crying for help. The need for your message right now is so great that we'll probably never be able to fill it as well as we would like. Rich or poor, black or white, beautiful or ugly, crowded or lonely, they all need help. There are millions who believe that life, their life, has not been heaven, but actually a hell on earth. Simon cocked his head and was hanging on my words as I usually hung on his. He made no reply, so I continued. The second ingredient to assure success is that the memorandum have the proper showcase and distribution. I haven't even read it yet, but I promise you this. I will make the God Memorandum part of my next book, and I will also write about you, and I will call the book The Greatest Miracle in the World. We'll show the world how to perform that miracle, how to recycle their own lives and come back from their living deaths. You would do that for me. For you, of course, but also for all those human beings who want a chance to live and don't even realize that it's still theirs for the taking. Suddenly, his booming laugh filled the apartment. Mr. Ogg, As I recall from my presidential days, most memorandums have carbon copies going to various individuals or departments within an organization. The God memorandum, should we carbon the world with it? Why not? We've got 4 billion workers in this company of ours, all struggling for a promotion to a better life, or willing to struggle if they knew how. Let's give them all a chance to pull off the greatest miracle in the world. And when that happens, we'll have our heaven right here. We'll show them how, Mr. Ogg. We'll show them how. Simon, as usual, when I'm with you, I've lost track of the time. I must run. May I take the memorandum to read over the weekend? His almost imperceptible hesitation would have gone unnoticed by anyone else. Not tonight, my friend, but soon, very soon, it will be in your possession. I knew enough not to push him. Okay. Good night, old man. Good night, young man, and thank you for a birthday party I shall never forget. You have truly lit a candle for me this night. As I walked under the parking lot gate that he had held up for me in that snowstorm nearly a year ago, I turned and looked up at his apartment window. There, silhouetted against the warm light from his living room, swayed the dark outline of Simon's new red geranium. Thank you so much for joining me as we have now completed Chapter 6 of The Greatest Miracle in the World. Stay tuned as we'll start again a new video for Chapter 7 coming next. If you haven't seen the previous chapters, just watch, and the description for this video, I'll have a link so that you can go back and watch those previous chapters, and I hope that you enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed going through it with you. Take care and have a wonderful day.